All right, so I'll say that we're very happy to have John McEntire. He might not want me to tell this part, but he and I were classmates, same class as 65 in Old Fort High School, and he's going to share with us some information and history about the McEntire family.
Well, thank you. We went to school together 12 years, as
Yes.
I recall.
Yeah.
My great-great-grandfather, William, was born in 1818, and just in Rutherford County, but if you go down Mumford's Cove, just in the edge of Rutherford County. He actually built Mount Pleasant Baptist Church. Is still there today.
Oh.
And it's and I'll wander a little, but
That's fine.
It was so funny. I knew that William was my great-great-grandfather. I did not know where he was buried, but my daughter Lindsay and I went down there. There was a wagon wheel maker, and it's a beautiful old church there with a huge bell, and I'm interested in bells, but I said, let's stop and look at that, and we did, and I said, well, let's go out in the cemetery, and lo and behold, I saw my great-great-grandfather's where he was buried.
And you didn't know before that?
No, did not know that.
Wow.
That was interesting, but anyway, he was a great-great-grandfather. He ran a store. We have a record in 1848 to 52 or something. He had a store down there where he bartered a lot and traded, but my great-grandfather, his son, was Rufus McEntire. He was born in 1850 in Rutherford County, and I have a picture of him here. I've got several interesting things here that you'd like to see.
Okay.
But anyway, as far as coming to McDowell County, well, Rufus's son, James Bryant, my grandfather, he was born in 1881, and I think Rufus was about 31 years old or so then. But they came to, and I don't know the exact date, but my grandfather came in a little after the turn of the century, and they lived out there. Do you remember where Wanda Tally Paget's old log cabin was? Well, I think that was owned by Joe Bergen, because my granddaddy bought lots of land from Joe Bergen.
Okay.
But they lived in that for a number of years, and then my grandfather bought close to 500 acres out there on Crooked Creek. It's where I live now and where the farm is. But he sold off to the Moores and to the Earleys, a farm on either side. On the Early side, his sister, John Early's wife, was my granddaddy's sister, if I'm not mistaken, and so that is still in the family. But anyway, I don't know, he bought that farm out there in 1912.
Oh. So the 500 acres?
Yeah.
1912?
Yeah, that was bought in 1912. And then he proceeded to build the old home place. It burned at one point, or about burned, and it was rebuilt, but I own that house now.
Where your parents grew up, and
Yeah.
where you grew up.
Yeah.
You call that the
Where-
old home
where
place?
where all of us, I was born in that house. 8 of the 9 kids were born in the house. But anyway, Rufus, my great-grandfather, he came and he lived across the road there before he sold that property to the Moores. He lived in a little house over there, Rufus did. But all of that came about in early 1900s, you know, and I can't say, I do know for a fact that he bought that 500 acres in 1912. But from there, I do not know when he bought, and it's quite a large acreage down where your grandparents, because the reason I know that, and I should have looked that up, but see, he owned all out there where my Uncle Rader lived,
Right.
and then that.
So almost to Pine Cove Road for people that might not know things
Yeah.
50 years ago.
Well, he owned apparently all the way to where Pine Cove exits the back cave road.
And probably up to where you start, like pretty close to where you might start up the road going to Moffett Hill.
Yeah, that's right. And then it was interesting to me that he sold to your grandparents, but now when my dad and mom were married in probably 1931, and they moved into that house, and that's about the time that my grandfather moved down into the old house that you all bought. And he had a little store there, and I'm going to show you if I can take just a second.
Sure.
This was my great grandfather Rufus.
Oh.
Stately, but he was, they tell me, he was a little bit of a mean type character.
Well, you know, we all can't be
The
perfect.
one in every family. That was my granddaddy. That's who.
Oh, yes. I recognize.
Yeah, and she was an early, but here is the old.
Oh my gosh. So this is the store. And this is so amazing. All right, so I don't know how we'll do this, but maybe afterwards we might. But I could not remember if there was a gas pump there.
There was an old gas pump, and
so is this your grandfather?
yes, that's standing there in front of it. And the interesting thing about this, he had just on out, if you're looking at it, just right of there, he had a corn mill, and he ground corn there. And I won't say what all that corn went into, but the most interesting thing to me, there's a little stream that goes behind there.
Right.
He put a little water wheel and a generator, and I bet you didn't know this. He had a battery pack in there and the electric lights up in the old house where, yeah.
Oh my
He was one
gosh.
of the first ones that.
So he generated his own electricity
Yes.
from that little tiny stream that was behind there?
Yes, he did.
Behind the store?
It was an undershot water wheel, and he also went up to Croom Holler, up to Roy Croom's or Roy's daddy, and he
On the,
he
like,
put
Mount Hebron Road?
Yeah, he put an electrical system in for them up there.
Now, so when, I mean, this had to be before 1945, because I'm thinking my grandparents came in
Oh, yeah,
1945.
this was in the 30s.
So in the 30s
Yeah.
that he did this electrical.
Yeah.
And how do you think he knew how to do that? Or how did he learn that process?
He was an innovative type fellow in many ways. He'd get involved. He made a lot of money. He lost the money. He tended to like the bottle a little too much, and he liked to gamble some. He owned at one time 6 dump trucks. He helped build Lake Tahoma. He worked on the parkway for the government, and he went over to what's the lake over there? Lord, going down.
Junaluska, Montana,
Lake Lure, right?
like not Lake Lure, but some.
Yeah, Lake Lure.
Lake
He
Lure?
worked in Lake Lure. But anyway, the scamp lost every
Scamp.
bit of it.
Well, easy come, easy go.
Yeah. But
Maybe not so easy come.
he was a good fellow though. He was a lively.
He had some good kids.
He was a man of color, put it like that. But they had they had what, 12 kids, I reckon. 17 twins died, but
Well, and then 2 other, I mean, like Marvin and Garvin were.
they were twins.
Yeah.
Had another set of twins.
And then, so basically they had 2 sets of twins.
Yeah. And that first set of twins, they were infant.
Okay.
Lived 2 or 3 days, and my Aunt Ray, they were buried down at Beals Creek. And my Aunt Rachel, in her later years, went in there and put little tombstones up for her sisters.
Excellent.
But anyway, that gets us to that point. But I thought that was really interesting that
Oh, I love this.
that he had that, and I didn't know he had it. My daughter Lindsay loves history, and Karen, of course, helps her. But they've collected, and I told Cathy that I'd like to get that picture. In fact, I called my cousin Jack, and he said, John, I've got that picture. If I can find it, I'll make a copy and give it to you. And Lindsay said, well, Daddy, I've got that picture. I said, get it out here.
Put this in my book. Put it in your book.
But so
I think it's got the right person's name on it.
yeah. Anyway, that in my immediate family, and of course this is about the total family. There were 9 kids, 7 still living, and my brother Carol and my brother Mitchell both have passed. This is a picture of my granddaddy and most of those kids. Yeah, that was.
Okay, and this is after they moved to the
after they went
yeah,
over.
closer to town.
Yeah.
And so that's them, and
Yeah, and that's, I don't know whether that's all of the kids or not, but this is, well, say it is as many as there are. That was at a birthday party for Pam.
wow, nice, nice.
And let me see what else I might see. There was another picture too you'd laugh at if I can see him. My daddy, he cut our hair always.
Your father?
Yeah, and his old snippers and he'd pull hair. But there he is cutting my granddaddy, Pomac's hair. He did that every time, many years ago. There's a picture of my daddy and his brothers. This is a picture of my daddy in front of one of his cars. And there's my daddy, he's holding my horse. But here's the one you'll laugh at. We had a buggy, and that's my brother Gerald pulling me and Tim. We were on that buggy.
Oh, look how little Tim's like a baby.
Tim was a tiny, and
And so, so just for the record, your dad's name was
Theodore.
And your mother's name was
Ruth.
Ruth.
She was a walker.
And she was, yeah, that was where I was headed. She was a walker.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. I didn't mean to interrupt.
And
Too
no,
bad.
I'm just rambling here.
This is good.
I'm
This is good.
Yeah, now on the farm out there, and I don't want to say a lot about me, but we still make molasses. This is.
You don't?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So
sorghum
what time of year? Oh, maybe we shouldn't put this in there. So
I've slowed
where
down.
do you get the stalks? Like you
heirloom,
grow-
the cane, we grow it.
You grow your
Yeah,
cane?
and it's you can save the seeds. Actually, I've saved the seeds a lot, but I also get seeds out of the University of Mississippi. They're cleaner but here's my Uncle Leroy when he was 95. And
I
that's
love
my
that.
brother Gerald, and that was me.
Okay, so what time of year do you make the molasses?
Early October.
Okay, now that would be a fun thing to get a picture of, like for us to record. Do you think we could come and record you making?
Yeah,
Are
certainly
you going to
could, but
make
I'm
them
not-
this
I'm not
year?
going to do it this year. I passed it for 1 year. I'll do it again. I've got to see that I got so busy, and then I had that illness. It's
Yeah.
just now time to always plant cane in early June.
Yeah.
You plant corn in early May, but I said this year I've got so much going on. I'm gonna pass
Okay,
it.
well, bums, so,
And let's see what else we got. Now, an interesting thing that it is to me, may not be, My
I wrote 3
granddaddy,
pages of
his
interesting.
will, his will.
Oh, now whose is it?
That's my granddaddy McEntire that lived
Okay,
up here. This is in his handwriting, but he had it sealed and all. He doled out percentages, and we have laughed like heck about this. He didn't have
Percentage
anything.
of what? I mean, percentage of everything?
Yeah, but you supposedly he has had money. There wasn't a dime of money after he was gone, and who knows, you know. But how he picked the percentages.
Oh, some got a lot more than others.
Oh yeah, my daddy had 1%.
Let's see, I know Rachel. I knew Rachel. She got a lot. She must have been a
Yeah.
favorite.
And up here's 14%.
Yeah. Marvin and Garvin.
Yeah. But then on the after he had died, some of the furniture, he wrote names on the back of the old furniture in his house.
So who he wanted to have it, if they wanted it? I mean, like who
Yeah, he was giving it away after he, and they didn't know that till they pulled out the furniture and said, well here's Theodore's name or whatever. But the furniture was old furniture. I don't know whether they used it or not. But
Who knows?
That's just one of those things, I reckon. I'll show you another picture or two. This is a picture when my brother Tim was in the Army. He was either just...
Is that all of your brothers and sisters?
Yeah. And here was a picture when, I don't know, did you remember Mr. Woodward that lived with Miss Swan down here and Gaden Swan's mother? He taught, but he has gone when we came through, long since.
I can remember people before me talking about him and...
He was our scoutmaster.
So was he your scoutmaster?
We camped a lot with him, but here, Merle and Gerald were in the scouts here, and he came out on a Sunday and wanted a picture of the family, and that's my daddy holding Tim, and that's me right here.
Well, I figure you have to be pretty small if Merle and Gerald were the scouts.
Oh, well.
Excellent. Oh, okay. Well, that was quite interesting, and boy, I love that picture of your grandfather in front of the store. And so maybe let's talk a little bit about that, or what you might know about, like when my grandparents bought property, and I haven't done the research to know. I know at one time, Mom and Dad, we lived up above them, and I don't really know who built our house. I'm thinking that Dad...
Now, when you say our house, that's the little house that you lived in.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm assuming that brothers had a lot to do with the building of it.
Right.
And so that's a question, like when they built what we're calling your home place, where you grew up, do you think it was somebody, like nowadays, you would hire somebody to come and build the house, or do you think it was really more family, like barn raising
more
type
family
of thing?
and more community.
More family and
There was
community.
Mr. Vernal Wilson. He was a builder, and he could lay blocks. He in 1951 out there on the farm that I own now, he laid the blocks for the little dairy barn and for the old silo. And yeah, he helped a lot of people. But
Because how tall is the silo? I mean, that would be...
Oh, that how tall?
Yeah.
It's I don't know exactly. It's probably 33 or 4 feet tall.
Even if I could lay brick or rock, I would not want to be doing it at 30 feet in the air.
No, and scaffolding up on old.
But
timber.
still, you had to get up there. I mean, and you had to work there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We had an old chute going up the side where we had to climb up there and throw silage out down that chute to feed the cows. After I bought that place, after Mom and Dad were gone, I bought it for my brothers and sisters. I said, what am I going to do with that old silo? And I thought, well, I might just tear it down. Well, and then I had a lot of ideas. I wish I had a picture of it, but I went out there with a big hammer Well, you couldn't knock it down. And around every row of blocks was a big heavy wire in there. It was,
Oh, so
but
built to stay.
I tore that out and put I figured along with Leonard Walker, door that was on the same slope or circumference as the silo. Put it in, painted it red, and then I brought school kids in there.
Right, right.
But there's something else I was going to show you here. May not have that picture.
Well, Lindsay's done an excellent job of putting together things I like to see.
Yeah. Rufus McEntire, my great-grandfather, married Artie Melton. And I wish to goodness I had her picture.
And when you say RD, is that letter?
A-R-T-I-E, Artie. I think so you spelled it.
A-R-T-I-E. And her last name was Melton?
Uh-huh. And I just don't have that. I've got that picture at home. But anyway, she was certainly she's a pretty rough-looking woman, and we thought she was part Indian. Yeah, she wasn't ugly, but she had lived a rough life.
Well, back in the day, you know, everybody probably had it pretty rough.
Oh yeah, they did, yeah. But my family, we didn't have anything except we sawmill, had that small dairy, always had plenty to eat, but well, we were poor folks.
So when your parents got married, and they pretty much lived in the home place most of their married life, is that true?
My mom,
Your parents,
yeah,
your parents.
yeah.
They mostly lived there, and I always remember there being a dairy farm. So was your father the person that started the dairy
Yes,
farm?
yes.
So it was his idea to have the dairy. And
I'll interrupt you. The reason I never got to participate in anything after school or sports or whatever, I had to go home. And earlier we milked cows
Manual
by
process.
hand. And then we got some old vacuum milkers, and I thought that was wonderful.
But that was something that had to happen morning and night.
Oh yeah, 7 days a week.
Yeah, yeah. So most of their married life, then they had the dairy farm. And you sold like to a commercial, like who did you sell to? Who did you sell the milk to? Or who did he sell?
It started out, early on, we sold some to Carnation. We had cold water and had it in 5 or 10 gallon cans. I still have some of those cans. Just put it in, and they'd come and pick it up and exchange cans.
So Carnation, like canned milk Carnation?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
company. And were they local, or was there a place?
There was a Carnation plant, I think in Marion at that time.
All right.
And then we sold to Burt Dairies
I remember
for a
that.
while, and then went to Biltmore.
I was going to say, did you ever sell
Yeah, we
to
sold
Biltmore?
most of the time to Biltmore in later years.
Because, well, Asheville's fairly close.
Yeah, that's right.
So when did you decide when was it your dad, Theodore, that decided he was going to build a sawmill? Was it he, or was who started the sawmill?
Oh, we've sawmilled all our life.
Oh, that's a McEntire thing?
Yeah.
Because didn't you say that your grandfather had a sawmill?
Yeah, down on the property where you all bought. Around that, that stream comes down through there. Paul Mac dug a trench around that hill, and did it so the water would run, then dammed it off. Water ran around that hill to I think they said it was a 16-foot wheel that turned. And
My goodness.
I asked Jack Bass about that. He said he drew, nobody had a picture of that. I told you that he went in a lot of summers and spent the entire summer with Pomac, and he remembered that thing vividly. But he drew a picture and gave it to Leroy and Alma, that's my Uncle Leroy. And they passed, and now their daughter Judy's passed, and they can't find him.
Oh,
But I'm trying to get him, he's getting feeble, but I'm trying to get him to draw
redo
that
it?
again.
Because he could draw it like from his mental picture.
Oh, yeah.
So that's interesting, but because I don't ever remember, I remember there being, well, my grandfather ran that same store after he bought from your grandfather.
Right.
But I don't remember, I remember there being some type of building structure on that side of the store, but I certainly don't remember a water wheel.
No, that water wheel and all, that was a big one, and that was across the road from the store, kind of in the edge of that field. And
Okay.
it ran there, and then they piped it back under the road to the stream over there.
I see.
But they ran that. He's down there several years because he had a big sawdust pile, and they said every time it rained, my granddaddy, he was a hard worker. He'd shovel it into the creek as hard as he'd get to get rid of it.
Wash down the street.
EPA,
Whoops.
they weren't around then.
Well, that was long ago.
Yeah, the sawmilling's been in the blood for generations.
Okay.
Even great grandfather down there, William.
So he had a
was
sawmill also?
Yeah, he had a little sawmill too.
Okay, interesting.
And I've got one now.
Yeah, well, and we've been working on a timeline for Old Fort, and truly, you know, when the tannery was here in town, a lot of people worked for the tannery, but a lot of people made their living by doing various jobs associated with timber.
Yeah.
From the harvesting of the timber to the, you know, the use of the bark at the tannery.
The tan bark.
And then if you use the bark for the tannery, then you could take the logs and, you know, take them to the sawmill.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of pictures of sawmills kind of spring up like weeds.
Oh, yeah.
Where people, and they put sawmills in different places where they could utilize the railroad or a single track to where they could take the lumber from some remote area and get it to the railroad line.
Do you know that my granddaddy bought the first old tractor in Old Fort? It was an iron wheel tractor, and if I'm not mistaken, that was a 1924, and he took it up on Stone Mountain to log some next to the Elliots, and he did. And they was getting tan bark and all up there then. But he got in a poker game with the Elliots and lost the tractor. But he'd owned it for
But
a few years.
You think he might have been the first person that had a tractor in the community?
Oh, yeah, and it
And
hauled in here on a train.
Came on a train?
Yeah.
1924,
And
what
it
kind
was
of model would it have been?
It was and I'll tell you who I tried to buy that tractor. There was an Elliott, what was his name down there, had that, Lawrence Elliott wound up with that, and he has since passed away, and his nephew got that. Well, of course, it's still standing.
Oh,
But
yeah,
that little building,
but
you
it's
remember, it
junk.
was out on this side, wasn't it?
Yeah, see, Miss Cox's was over here, and then, well, okay, no, are you recording?
Maybe.
I just hit record.
Oh, okay,
Just
all
hit it.
right, all right. But now, John had a story to tell, so let's let him tell that story, and then we'll tie up some knots.
Well, it's a funny thing to me, and my name is John McEntire. I live on Crooked Creek in North Carolina. Several years ago, I got a call and from a fella in Arkansas, and he said his name was John McEntire, and he wanted to meet me. Well, he came out. He's a good bit older. We became close friends, but we talked and looked around the farm there, and his name is John McEntire. He lives on Crooked Creek in Arkansas, and he looked at. I showed him. I've been interested in antiques and all kinds of things. He looked. He says, "There's no need for you to come see me." He says, "You've got everything I've got." Now, he was telling a tale because he's got 3,000 acres, and
he was being complimentary.
he was. but I've been out there several times. We visited back and forth. He's a super good guy. But I thought that was so funny.
See John with an E?
Yes, and the story. My great grandfather was William. Mm-hmm. His great grandfather was Ransom. Ransom and William are brothers.
Oh.
So it's just an offshoot.
So
thing.
you really are related, just distantly.
Yeah, certainly related.
And John is not an uncommon name. Like with being a Robinson, I have an uncle whose name's John, and then 2 generations before that, there's my great-grandfather had a brother named John, and then 2 generations before that, there was another John. I mean,
Right. Yeah, it's
John
common.
and William, and names, I can't think of the others, but there's George. Oh, they just kept using the same names, and it makes it very confusing for us.
It does. But that was.
Well, so how did he find you?
He probably saw it in some.
Like Ancestry or
No, there was an article in Our State.
Oh.
And I was featured in there, and I don't remember just how that was about the corn and this and the other, and he read that, and it excited him. But that's just a tidbit.
Well, that is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, we're going to circle back about a couple of different things. This is my very favorite picture. People that are listening to this will know this as McPeter's store.
That's right.
And I don't know why it's not Robinson's store or McEntire's store, but I'd say your grandfather started the store. Yeah. And it's after you go across Moffett Hill and in the first straight before you get to turn off to Pine Cove and go into Painters. Mm-hmm. Most everybody would know. And so it's, so the McEntire was the person in the picture and the person that had the store. In 1945, my grandfather, whose name was Wilburn Curtis Robinson, he purchased this store, the land on that side of the road that your grandfather owned, like what we call Miss Cox's house. Right. And there was a building on the other side. And then at least 50, if maybe 100 acres, including the home where your grandparents lived.
Yeah.
So after your grandparents lived there, then my grandparents lived there. And my grandfather had come from Yancey County, Busick, and he ran a country store. And so when he came here, it's ready made, yeah. So they bought your grandparents' home, and he ran this store. And at some point, real soon after that, because that was 45, and 47, I was born, and we lived in the little house right beside the store.
Yeah.
And I was the first one, so it was me and my mom and just me. And then 2 years later, my sister came along, and she came faster, so she was born in what we call Miss Cox's house.
Yeah.
And we lived there at that time. But I had no idea that there was. Now tell me again, so was the sawmill on the opposite side of this store?
Well, the road would go right through here now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the sawmill would have been on this side.
Oh, okay.
And they built that, my granddaddy trenched that around that hill, which you all bought.
Right.
And let that, put a little flume in there to turn that water wheel, which turned the mandrel to saw with.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Quite amazing. Okay, so It is, I think we need to change the name of this store.
Well, yeah, I agree, I don't
But
see
everybody, I always say, do you know where McPeter's store is? And everybody, because this, McPeter's, and I think they might have lived upstairs.
Some of them did.
Yeah,
I know.
after my grandfather, sometime after my grandfather gave up working.
Well, now, after you all or your grandfather, whoever, quit running that store, did the McPeters come in immediately? See?
No, there was, I don't know who owned it, and I don't know if it's still someone in my family, but they rented it, and because there was a family there that had children that I babysat sometimes. And they just lived there wasn't a store, they just used it as a home.
Right.
But then Mr. McPeters came, and he ran it when we were, I don't know, pretty young kids.
Yeah.
In elementary school, probably.
You know, when my granddaddy was running that store, Arnold and Carol were, and that's way on back, of course, but they were young boys. Mm-hmm. And they went down there, he wanted them to help dig potatoes. So they went down there and dug his potatoes. And he gave them, it was either a dime or 15 cents. And said, boys, go down there and get you a Coke and a moon pie or something. Drink was
Yeah,
new.
we've had that conversation with a couple of people, you know, how much, like, there was one guy that was a town kid, and so he talked about how much it cost to go to the movie.
Yeah.
You know? And I can't remember if it was a nickel or a dime. Like, for a dime you could go to the movie, and for another dime you could get a drink and some popcorn.
But Arnold and Carol laughed about our granddaddy hoodooing them. So you pay them to work, and then say, go down there and spend it in my store.
Oh, he gave them the money, and then they had to give it back to him.
Yeah.
Oh,
Gracious.
so I think that we're good, unless, can you think of anything that we need to go back on?
So how long did your family run or oversee the store?
This store?
Yeah, at all?
I don't know exactly.
Well, did you tell us, do you know when he bought the property?
He would have got that property, I think, in the
Like in the 30s?
early 30s, because he bought that down there about the time my mom and dad got married.
Yeah.
And
So my grandfather bought in
45.
45. So I'd say he ran that store for at least 15 years.
Yeah, probably so.
And then your family ran it for,
Well, I'd have to do a little math, but probably my grandfather maybe ran it for a few years. And I'd just be guessing at 5, because he was getting close to retirement age, and he also wasn't as healthy.
What was his name?
Wilburn Curtis.
Wilbur.
And his wife's name was Dosky.
Wait a minute.
D-O-S.
Wilburn.
Wilburn Curtis. Some people called him W.C. Robinson.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Robert. Wilburn.
Well, if anything comes up or any questions, call me.
Well, and I usually do like a little outline for, as to what we talked. That's why I was writing. And,
And if I told things that I shouldn't, delete them. I could tell a whole lot on myself, but I kind of keep
you did a pretty good job. You kept it pretty clean. So that was fabulous. Don't you think? Oh my gosh.